Oh man, have you ever bought a rusty tool and it's old and rusted, and the guy has probably owned it since, well, for his whole life. You bought it, now you own it. You take it home, you throw it in the toolbox and go, man, if I ever need one, that bad boy is right there. And then for years, you don't even remember you own the darn thing. Hi, and welcome to Coffee and Tools this week. Thanks for stopping by. This is episode 48. What we're looking at is really an old rusted. I was looking for some tools that you kind of buy them and they last you a lifetime. And this is one of those tools that you're going to hardly ever use it. It's easy to maintain, easy to sharpen. They're fairly inexpensive to buy, but it's a nice tool when you need the dang thing. It's a nice tool to have. What is it? Well, this is a terrible set, and I don't remember how I ever found this thing, that it's all in pieces here. But this is basically a hole punch set. It also has a couple of other items in here with it, even, because I don't even have all of it. But old hole punch tools are pretty inexpensive to buy, and what's really nice about them, like this one right here, you can just take it to the grinder, and just sort of like put a new blade on them all the time. But if you have these and you're doing like automotive work and you need a gasket, and you're making a gasket, and you need to punch a hole or something, this thing is awesome. And the slug from the cut comes up, of course, through this slot here after you take a screwdriver and jam your way through it. But the hole punch sets just in general, very rarely ever used. It's just something you buy, you throw it in the toolbox, and you're like, yeah, down the road, if I run into something, I can use it. The other thing that we do use, even in the wood industry, is these. And they're sort of like a hole punch, but they're not. There's a very tiny head in here that's kind of dished this way, and then has the edge like a hole punch. The difference is you're going to put this on top of a finishing nail, or even in some cases I've even done it to a brad nail, and bury the nail into the wood a little bit, because you want to bring the metal down below the surface to where you're going to be sanding, finishing, and you might even be filling the hole in a little bit with some wood filler to finish the job on like a cabinet or something like that, where you really want the finish to look really good. And so I've had these forever, and I was just thinking the other day, it's really funny because I've had this set for so long. It was kind of like I have to open the box to see what's in there, and when I opened it, it was like, oh Lord, it was like, yeah, there's not much in here for hole punch. I might actually even have to consider looking at hole punch sets on the internet, and buy a decent set, because you hardly ever use them, but when you do, it's nice to have. Now these specific pieces I've got here are used for the hole punch for this particular kit, but the reason for this was, and this is really odd, this is a set that it belonged to a fella that raced at Daytona for years, and this is what he had in here. So what was in here is what he was using, and there's just a very few tiny little sizes. Some of them, I mean, look at there's not much. I don't know how you'd even hit that with a hammer without taking out your two fingers. I guess you could put a set of pliers on it, right, and reach over and bang, knock the hole through. It's nicely beveled. It still, to this day, still has a pretty good sharp little edge on it. And I've got a couple real tiny ones in here. This specific race team ran Norton antique motorcycles at the time. This is all that was in his kit, and so it's still with me to this day. This one here, I can barely even remember it, but it was a specific tool that was used with a spring-loaded little piece in the center here. And this was also for marking and making specific punches. Just an odd tool, but it's really nice to have a set because they're not expensive. And if you ever have to cut a gasket hole, or you're working with something where you need a hole knocked out and a drill's not really going to work for you because it's made of some kind of fabric or fiber or paper or gasket paper, leather, anything like that, these things will do a terrific job. The other thing I have, and I can't find it, is the old hole punch that I used to have for when we were kids. We were doing newspaper route. we would punch the cards on the customers as week to week when they paid for the delivery of the newspaper. That was really something I really wanted to have with me today, and God help me, I went through the toolbox several times. It's like, I can't even find it. So. Hey, thanks for stopping by at Coffee and Tools this week, and we're working on, I think we're going to take a look at some of the odd tools that we all own over time that, some people might pull out of your toolbox and say, what the